Hello there, and welcome to the final part of Suspicion. It's season 1, episode 4 of Atlantis, and I know I haven't recorded in a little while, mostly because on Monday our lives turned completely upside down, and yet somehow we knew this was coming. We have been waiting for our work permits to come through, and we've been waiting for months, and suddenly on Monday we opened the internet and there they were. I mean, the physical copies are still coming in the mail, but we went from, oh no, nothing, we are just waiting, and suddenly we have to pack, find a house. Yeah, pack and find a house. Those two have basically taken up every spare moment of my life, and this not being a paid vocation meant I couldn't record for a while. But anyway, I'm taking the time now, and I hope I'll be able to finish before I have to go to work. So let's get into it and let's try and finish this. So we left off. Oh yeah, we start with Bates, the eternal Bates, upending Teyla's bags. I mean, this is a small bag with all of her possessions, and he tells Rodney to go through her stuff, looking for something that to point them in the direction of how the Wraith keep showing up. One of the things Bates specifically says is that anything that is technologically more advanced than the Athosians, keep in mind the Athosians do have this long distance lighter thingamabob, so deciding what technology is ahead of them will be a tough thing by those rules. But anyway, and Rodney isn't really happy about it, but Rodney is seriously logical, so he probably sees the point in it, and he does as commanded, although he's not military. Meanwhile, we're back in the excuse me, we're back in the infirmary, and Ford is telling John that Teyla saved his life. And although Rodney interrupts them to obviously come and tell them what he found in Teyla's bags, and Rodney and John welcome Ford into the small group of those who had taken a Wraith blast. But Ford says, kind of looking like a dum-dum, that he didn't get hit by a Wraith stunner. He jumped out of the way of a Wraith stunner, and he must have hit his head on a rock, which actually is worse because now he probably has a concussion. I mean, or brain damage. I don't know. Maybe that's why Ford never worked. He hit his head on a rock. I would like you to know, and this I would like you to know that I might have mentioned that my dad was in the army, and so I grew up with army stories, and one of the things that my dad always told us is that while they were doing basic training, one of the things they learned the most was how to dash, dive, roll, sights, shoots, so something like that. But anyway, they spend a lot of time diving and rolling so they don't hit their heads on the way down. So yeah, Ford's a bit of a dum-dum. I actually don't like this. It makes for a fun moment, but I actually don't like this little bit of writing. He would have been a top achiever, one of the best soldiers out there. He would not be the kind of guy who dashes out of the way of a Wraith stunner and then hits his head on a rock. He would have known not to do that. With Ford, I often feel like he's just a regular, kind of smart, but regular run-of-the-mill soldier. He's like any soldier they could have taken off the field and stuck in Atlantis. The thing is, the Atlantis team would have been the best of the best. If we're talking about soldiers, he would have been more like along the lines of what's that new series, Jack Reacher, who is and his team, like they are maybe he's not a Marine, although maybe he should have been. I think that, I don't know what arm of the military he's from, but I feel like there should have been more to Ford, more, especially concerning his abilities as a soldier. These would have been like the type of soldiers you take with you, and you can take 10 of them, and you could probably invade the entire Russia, take Russia, and nobody knows until the Russians wake up one morning and they realize they are no longer Russia. That's the kind of people you wanted. Ford should not have been the kind of guy who dashed out of the way of a Wraith blast to end up hitting his head on a rock. Anyway, it makes for a nice little moment, but anyway, John is obviously angry at Bates for making Rodney go through Teyla's stuff, except that Rodney tells John that Bates was right. Teyla has a Wraith transmitter. The necklace she had been wearing all this time is actually a transmitter broadcasting continuously. And I've always wondered about this a little bit. The episode, I think, here is asking us for the benefit of the doubt, which the series and the writing hasn't done before, but this time we have to infer a little bit of what was going on here. Literally earlier in the episode, she was wearing the necklace, but now Bates got it from her. And I've always kind of assumed that Bates had gone behind Teyla's back in obtaining her stuff, the same way he had gone behind John's back to obtain Teyla's stuff. But seeing as he actually has the transmitter, the thing she's been wearing around her neck all this time, he probably forced her, or I don't know, he must have convinced her somehow to give her stuff to him. We never see that, and we never see the fallout of that. I think that is probably the weakest part of this episode. This episode does great work in showing loneliness, isolation, unforeseen friendships, the way that people who go through the same things can commiserate with one another. And yet, I would have liked Teyla to be behind Bates and tell him, I don't like this. And then she tells John, okay, or she tells Rodney, okay, fine, do this, prove I'm innocent. And then have them show her being anxious about this. But we don't see her reaction to having Rodney go through her stuff, or finding the transmitter. This is all shown from other people's perspectives. Well, this is a very personal violation of Teyla's privacy. This is her stuff, and something that, and they should have shown Teyla's reaction to this entire thing. So this is that. I think that's the worst part of this episode. I've always hated the fact that Bates went through her stuff, but on retrospect, I feel Bates going through her stuff and the episode not showing us any of her reaction to it. Even when, as we see, just pretty much soon that I'm going to skip it. We pretty much soon see that the rest of them do agree Teyla was innocent, and there's this plan to capture a Wraith. And Teyla just goes along with it all the way, and we never see how angry she could get, which she would have been, or at least resigned, but she would have been angry at Bates going through her stuff, at John, at Rodney, and they should have shown that. Anyway, so I'm quickly gonna go through this. They immediately skip to the conference room where it's just you can't see this well here, but it's John, Bates, Elizabeth, and Rodney, and they're talking about the little necklace. They keep calling it a locket, but it's by definition not a locket. Lockets are are things you can open and put little pictures in. This sort of thing isn't that. Anyway, although Bates insists on still blaming Teyla, everyone else kind of immediately realizes that this little transmitter has only been transmitting because John gave it to Teyla. Teyla's just another human in the galaxy, in the Pegasus galaxy, but John has the ATA gene. Therefore, according to the Wraith, who don't know any better, he is an ancient. I mean, that's what it is, the ancient gene. He has the ancient gene. And so they would want to keep track of where, if there are any ancients. So at the moment, John, with his 88 gene, 88, ancient technology activation gene activated with his ancient technology activation gene, the little transmitter. And it's a very short range thingy. So it only transmits from planets where there must be another transmitter. Bates dum-dum. Like, I don't know. His character is a bit of a mess. He should also be the top of his game. He should also be very on the up and up on the technology of the technology and the lore of the ancients as much as they know at this point. It shouldn't require Rodney to tell him. Anyway, something as I was watching this episode occurred to me. This episode was put in the perfect place. We recently started watching SG1 because we do that. We watch SG1, we watch Atlantis, several other stuff, but we watch a lot of Stargate. And one of the first things you notice when watching SG1 is that they kind of had the first episode figured out and the second episode and maybe Emancipation, but after that it's kind of a free-for-all on whatever story it's very random stories. Like, it's just basic stuff happening. But in this episode, but in this season, this season specifically, this episode couldn't have been placed any other spot. Up to now, they haven't been off-world except to the Wraith planet where they have been before and where they were Wraith. And they could have just assumed that there were some Wraith left running around. Even though they might have been summoned via the little beacon. So this episode, they haven't gone to any other planets. So we can't go asking, why didn't this occur earlier? But this is the first time that the team is going off-world. It's very much part of one's bigger story up to now. They come to Atlantis, they wake the Wraith, and now things are being set in place to get them going to the rest of the season. Unlike, of course, Ensign Samantha Wildman. It's always annoying. There are actually several things about Voyager. As much as I love Voyager, there are some things that annoy me. One day I'm going to talk about the compound. But although it makes for really nice storytelling with Samantha Wildman being pregnant, the thing is, she only tells us she's pregnant when they were at least 10 months already on their voyage. Like, wow, you didn't realize you were pregnant for like 10 months. Anyway, so anyway, I still feel this season was very well thought out, and we continue to Elizabeth admitting that obviously none of the Athosians were guilty of being Wraith sympathizers, proving Teyla was correct. Again, it would have been much better to see Teyla's reaction to this, to both having them go through her stuff and to her and her people being proven innocent. Like, we don't get any of that, which is really, this is a glaring hole in the writing. And this is on the writers. The writers should have been there. Unless they did put it in and the directors cut it. So again, but they should have shown Teyla's reaction to all of this. And then John, of course, I have an idea. It's like, what kind of idea is this? Why did Elizabeth sign off on this? This is a bad idea. Anyway, so we cut to Ford, Rodney, and John breaking out some military equipment. I mean, those are ammo cases. I immediately recognize them. I also have to wonder, why are they so banged up? Like, again, this is a military expedition to another galaxy. You'd think the military, whatever arm of the military, of the armed forces, sent these, would have sent the newest, the brand newest, the best of the best, like the top of the range. Like, these guys just came off of the production floor, both the equipment and the cases they are shipped in, because you don't want a defective, old, banged up case when your people are stranded in another galaxy. Also, pride. You know, if I'm sending people to another galaxy, I'm going to give them the best of the best, even if they never come back. At least I know that I sent them with the best of the best, not a banged up ammo case. Maybe the production couldn't afford new ones. Maybe the military wasn't willing to give them some actual unbanged up cases. Why they then just didn't make one? I don't know. I feel they put so much money in and then they have this banged up case. I mean, anyone who has ever been in the military had probably seen more banged up cases than not. But still, they are in a different galaxy. You'd think they would have sent the best of the best. I keep coming back. It should have been the best of the best. Anyway, Teyla comes in and they're like, oh, you're late. And she's like, it won't happen again. Why? If I had been Teyla, I would have still been furious. She wasn't. I would have been furious. Teyla's a better person than I am. She probably saw the writing on the wall and realized these guys are dum-dums. And she will have to be the adult in the room. Also, she's no longer wearing her necklace. Also, her top, I always imagine it's like a purpler, and lighter purple, but it's a dark blue. I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, so we get a rundown of their plan. It's one of those plans that they start talking and then it turns into showing us. One of the things that I do find kind of interesting is Ford is the one running them through the plan, which is fine. It's probably his job. But then he shows them the stun grenades, which later they just call flashbangs. So I'll just call them flashbangs. And he explains how the flashbangs work, although he doesn't explain how the claymores work. And he then hands the flashbang to John, which then looks at it like he's never, ever, ever, ever seen a flashbang before. Like, the acting, the directing, it was weird kind of there. What should have happened is that Rodney should have held out his hand for it, instinctively gave the flashbang to Rodney, because Rodney wouldn't have seen a flashbang before, neither would Teyla, and she would have, like, they could have had this, like, unspoken little thing, this little, where Rodney's looking at the thing and Teyla's like taking it and wondering, and then Rodney's like, oh yeah, you take the spin, and then John's like, no, are you two dum-dums, and takes the flashback. And then we would have seen that both Rodney and Teyla got an explanation of how the thing works. John wouldn't have looked like an idiot and we could have been on our way. So that was just dumb directing. That's on the director. This is on the director. Anyway, back on the planet, we see Rodney so far out of his comfort zone. Also, I still can't decide if this is a green screen or actually on site, if this is like on a sound stage or outside. I know some people can look at it and just know. To me, it's just like, I don't know. And finally, the Wraith show up, and Ford's nails are slightly creepily long. I don't like men with long nails. It creeps me out then. Anyway, not even I have very long nails. Anyway, so Ford's nails are a bit long, especially for a military man. I feel like the character Ford isn't inhabiting someone who had basic training. When you've had basic training, there's a way you stand, there's a way you carry yourself, there's a way you groom yourself, because these things have been drilled into you. You don't have a choice in the matter. Basic training has a large part of breaking down the person who is and rebuilding those people as new people, as soldiers. This is to ensure safety and survival. And Ford doesn't inhabit that. He doesn't look like a soldier to me. He doesn't. If I look at him, I don't see a soldier. I see an actor playing a soldier. Rodney is very much out of his, like, he's really not happy. And this is fine. I feel David Hewlett embodying Rodney. Like, Rodney is a scientist. He did this thing. He was so curious. He just had to go to this other galaxy. And now people are expecting stuff of him that is so far beyond him. And he's doing his best. Rodney is a believable character. Ford isn't, which might be part of the problem. Anyway, the Wraith find the necklace. And then there's this moment where the Wraith picks up the necklace. And I'm sorry, obviously, this guy isn't. His fingers have been elongated to some extent for the shot. That's the one thing that's always a gift. I don't know why people still try and make elongated fingers on actors. It never looks the same, because if you put an extra if there's an extra part of the finger, obviously you can't bend it and you can't use it the way you should. It always looks fake. It always looks as if the person, which they are doing, are still using the tips of their fingers to pick stuff up and do stuff, but there's just this thing, extra bit there. They aren't using that extra bit. They are using their actual hands. I mean, not even this guy, Doug Jones, could have made that work. And let's be honest, he convinced that he was a fishman. And which, speaking of, during The Shape of Water, one of the first, I mean, you didn't recognize Doug Jones because he's the fishman, like total fishman there up in the corner. No, the other fish. He's been several fishmen. Anyway, but one of the, I didn't know I recognized the black lady. I didn't recognize the female lead. I didn't recognize the male lead, and of course, Doug Jones is a fish. But I did recognize Rodney, like, immediately. And then after I watched the movie, I watched several reviews just to I don't know. I just watched some reviews, and there's this one guy who's like, he does for a living. He does commentary on sci-fi movies, and he's like, oh yeah, and then there's this some guy, and he looks Rodney dead in the face, and he's like, this just random guy, like just some guy. It's like, oh, you ignoramus! How can you make a living telling us about sci-fi and you don't recognize Rodney McKay? Like, even if you've forgotten David Hewlett's name, that's Rodney McKay, you bumbling buffoon. How dare you try and make a living telling us about sci-fi if you don't even recognize Rodney? Anyway, so back to the episode. We get a nice little battle, fireworks and all, and then we see Teyla go all feral, all savage. And I don't know if she is just supposed to be the savage or if she's just really angry at this point, which I would like to go for angry at this point after everything that's happened. This is the only place she could show her frustration. Anyway, she empties an entire magazine into the head of a fallen Wraith, and then she reloads and goes again. Yeah, she is really angry. Meanwhile, the boys are trying to stun themselves a Wraith, And Teyla's off on her own with just her pistol, just like probably a 9mm, so what, 10 shots? Like, she just emptied an entire big gun, like a rifle, into the Wraith and then went again. And now she's chasing this Wraith. Anyway, on her own, she's really, really pissed. And when shooting him didn't work, she picks up a very convenient straight stick, and then she continues to beat the hell out of him. Also, if this shot looks familiar, it's the shot they used for Teyla in the opening credits. Anyway, she beats the hell out of the Wraith, but he's still a Wraith. And so meanwhile, the Wraith the boys were trying to apprehend activated self-destruct. Like, these guys lived for thousands of years, but he self-destructed. Which I feel from the pyrotechnics department, this might be a little more kablooey than needed for a guy going self-destruct. Although probably it's supposed to be like he's supposed to take out an enemy ship as well on his self-destruct. Anyway, it's a big fireball, and so the boys no longer have their Wraith. And although this Wraith is trying to kill Teyla, he gets shot by a Wraith blaster in the back. He's down. They capture him. It's the bad idea. And we cut to Teyla on her way. She's back in Atlantis, and Elizabeth is asking Teyla if she's okay. Teyla's on her way heading to the mainland to visit her people, and the only one coming to ask her if she's okay is Elizabeth. Not John, Elizabeth. And Elizabeth actually admits as an apology that she knows the last few days had been difficult for Teyla. And Teyla accepts her apology and tells her it's fine by admitting if the roles were reversed, Teyla, would have probably done the same thing. And Elizabeth actually says thank you. I mean, they implied apology and acceptance of it. So yeah, I love the relationship between the two women. Don't like that much that we didn't get to see Teyla react directly to her privacy being violated. And anyway, for a final scene, we cut to a Wraith in a cage. And the Wraith does some grandstanding with threats like, "Oh, you need to know that I am death," whatever. And John pretty much tells him he's not afraid, which fine, I mean, the Wraith is in a, but it's a bad idea. Like, they don't explain why they called the Wraith. I mean, yes, they needed to study it them more, but it's there's a Wraith that could have been killed in battle. Fair and square killed, that's it. But now they have a prisoner of war, and there are rules for prisoners of war. Like, they're gonna have to feed him. Can they feed him? No. Can they let him go? No. Because now he knows that Atlantis actually is still there. So you can't let him go with the knowledge he has. You can't feed him because nobody's gonna offer up other humans to be eaten. So in effect, you're going to have to starve him to death. And that is very much against all the Geneva Convention and all those little rules that we humans try to enforce unsuccessfully, to try and make the idea of a prisoner of war less frightening. And this is just like a 4th episode, and they already broke the Geneva Convention, which is just fantastic. Like, I do have to wonder why Elizabeth signed off on this, seeing as she is introduced when she was still blonde wear, that she's all for disarmament, and she negotiated a treaty of disarmament with an African warlord or something, which is and now she has a Wraith prisoner of war that they have no option but to starve to death. Like, wow. This went places very quickly. This is a weird little. obviously they need the Wraith for further episodes. This is a Chekhov's gun Wraith. But why did they capture a Wraith? Like, why did they capture a Wraith? Anyway, that's next week's or next episode's worries. And I just hope that despite the cockeyed idea of capturing a Wraith, you enjoy Atlantis. Even if you enjoy it, just have as much as I do, because that's why I'm doing this. I'm really just sharing with you all the things I really love about this series, because it's such a fabulous series, even if they have a prisoner of war they can't feed in the 4th episode. Anyway, see you next time, guys.